Hey, what's up guys, Rev here. So I know we talked about this briefly in yesterday's video. However, the drama surrounding Mushoku Tensei has gotten much worse. After facing a lot of harassment from Western users on Twitter, the author of the series has come forward to make a public statement reminding people that his views on slavery are separate from those views of his fictional characters that he creates. Yes, he had to quite literally go onto Twitter to remind people that fiction and reality are not the same thing. This tweet next to me will forever remain relevant because Twitter users simply can't separate fiction and reality. But how did we get here? Well, the first half of the second season of Jobless Reincarnation is currently airing. This series is very popular in Japan, but it's also very popular among Western viewers as well. And of course, when something from Japan gets popular in the West, trouble ahead. And things got interesting after the latest episode aired. This is an episode that features the main character Rudius visiting a slave trade where he encounters this character and takes her in under his wing where he has her make him figurines. And there's two important things to note about this episode. Number one, this series is an isekai. This is a world with different cultures and values, and it's not the same as the regular world where he came from. And second, once he takes this character in, he treats her pretty well, or as well as he can under the circumstances, providing her a home, food, education, and so on. However, Western viewers of this episode were very upset because they dislike this kind slave master trope, and they think it's dated and has no place even in the realm of fiction. And of course, this is ridiculous. We're talking about fictional characters here, but nonetheless, people on Western Twitter were upset about this episode and the dynamic between these two characters. However, the drama surrounding this episode actually began a few days prior when the author of the series was live tweeting his reaction to the new episode as it aired in Japan on August 13th. And this tweet is pretty poorly translated on Twitter itself. So this is a better translation that is provided by the Anime News Network in an article they made that we'll be talking about in a second. So also I use this one in particular, I want to clarify, because this screenshot is the one that people are using to cancel the author and claim that they're pro-slavery. So let's read the quote. About Rudius. He doesn't really have any feelings of hatred for slavery. He feels like it's not necessarily the case that all slaves are universally unhappier as slaves than they were before becoming slaves. So while kidnapping is evil, he can't say with certainty that slavery itself is evil and doesn't want to impose his own sense of justice upon a culture he is unfamiliar with. So there's some ambiguous things about this message, but one thing that is completely unambiguous is the fact that this quote is about Rudius. This does not reflect the author's beliefs and views of slavery. This is about Rudius, the fictional character, and their beliefs regarding slavery. That is very clear. And the rest of it is open to interpretation, I think, at least a little bit. So the way I see it is that the character Rudius has no aversion to this concept generally, and in this world, he feels like he has no right to lay down a sense of justice upon a foreign world with different customs, culture, and law than the one that he came from, and he feels like he can't judge this new world based on his old world's standards. And if you disagree with that message, that's okay, because at the end of the day, we're talking about the beliefs of a fictional character, not the author themselves. And that's the problem with all these people taking this quote and attributing these beliefs to the author themselves and not just the character. And that line would get blurred more thanks to tweets like this from the Anime News Network, where we got that quote from, where they phrase their title here in a way that at least leads more people to believe that these quotes are attributed to the author's beliefs and not the character's beliefs. And you can see the number of quotes. People didn't actually read the article, they didn't read the quote in full context, and they immediately used this as a chance to dunk on this author and claim that they're pro-slavery. And you see many tweets like this. I'm only going to go through a few, but you have a message like this saying, "You heard it here, folks. The author of Mushoku Tensei thinks slavery isn't all that bad. Is he still your author?" You have other tweets like this sending death threats to the author and just fans of the series as well, but you get the point. People had a very toxic response to that quote from August 13th, and a few days later, after facing all of this criticism and harassment from Western users, the author of the series came forward to make a public statement. So this is the statement itself, and again, it's Google Translate. It's not the prettiest, but you get the general message. It says, "I don't condone slavery myself, so I'd like to apologize. But it's true that I wrote Rudius as someone who has no aversion to slavery. I've written it in a mild setting so that it can be accepted, so there's no point in justifying yourself." I can't think of anything more embarrassing than the fact that the author of this series had to come onto Twitter to remind people that their personal beliefs are separate from their fictional characters. They had to literally remind a bunch of seething, freakish Western Twitter users that fiction and reality are not the same. It's a really sad moment, and it should have been obvious from the first quote that these viewpoints between the author and the character were separate. But apparently, that wasn't very clear to people who were looking for a reason to be outraged. And a lot of people also looked at this language right here saying, "So I'd like to apologize," and they construed this whole thing as an apology, which personally I don't view this as an apology. And this is something that the author would come forward to clarify, saying, "Many people have told me that I don't have to apologize, but in Japan, that sentence is not recognized as an apology, so maybe I didn't apologize." And I think that, again, comes down to Google Translate not having a proper term for whatever was originally said, and it came out as apologize. And again, I don't view that as an apology. I view this as the author coming forward and confirming for people and clarifying their stance, because apparently they had to do that because people were taking things out of context. And yes, I am glad to see that this author did not apologize, because there is a growing number of cases where Japanese artists and authors and alike are harassed by Western Twitter users, and perhaps it has to do with the duress of being harassed by a foreign language speaking group of people, but they end up apologizing in an attempt to stop the harassment, which it never does, because on Twitter at least, 99% of apologies either accomplish nothing or make the situation worse, because the people you're dealing with will never be satisfied. They will not be satisfied by an apology. They want you ruined. They don't just want you to apologize. They want to see your life crumble. They want to see you run off of social media. They want to see you fired from your job. They want to see you completely and utterly ruined. They don't stop at apologies. And it doesn't matter how ridiculous their demands are. It's not going to get resolved by apologizing. They're only going to see that as a moment of weakness, and it will empower them because they'll believe that, oh, look at that. They respond to our threats online and we can get them to do more. They won't stop at the apology. So you're dealing with unreasonable people who want to ruin you. You don't negotiate with these people. You don't apologize. You simply keep moving and ignore them, as tough as it might be. But that is the case with apologies, and I think that's a very fair interpretation of how to handle situations like that. You just can't apologize to unreasonable people who want to ruin your life over the smallest things like fictional content, for example. But I saw some other comments like this asking the simple question of like, why does a section of anti-Twitter continue to discuss shows they don't like? If season 1 had aspects that turned you off, why continue to engage? Well, it's because these people are obsessed. They're obsessed with not only harassing people, but attention that comes from it. So I can't tell you how many people dedicate their lives to attacking people over things they claim to hate. Now, there's an issue here where it's not clear sometimes, where it might just be this person is a harasser who's looking for an excuse to attack someone. So they find something they don't like and use that as an excuse to go after people and justify it under a show. But in reality, they just want to hurt people. But there's also a section who I genuinely believe is the product of mental illness, who they find something that they claim to hate, and maybe they really do hate it, but they make their entire personality revolve around talking about it. We see this with the lolicon debate. How many people out there claim that lolicon is pedophilia and it's the worst thing in the world, and yet they spend their entire online presence dedicated to talking about it? It's just the product of mental illness at that point. There's no way you could actually have the stomach to keep talking about something that supposedly irks you so badly. But nonetheless, this was not the only situation where a Japanese creator was being harassed over the past couple of days. The artist Funa Musia, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, has been getting harassed by a lot of people on Western Twitter. Now, this artist is very popular. They have nearly 1 million followers on Twitter, and they've been around for many, many years making art. Now, they're getting harassed for not only some concepts that they use in their art, like incest, for example, but they're also being harassed for their past actions, which is something they addressed in a recent tweet. And that one controversy that a lot of people are focusing on is the fact that they drew an anime character with a Nazi military uniform in fan art. This was something that happened so long ago that they were in junior high school when they made that art. And it's something they already deleted and apologized for. And a lot of people look at this and don't even think they owe an apology to begin with, but they did apologize, and this happened many, many years ago. And they keep going through here and addressing some of the things that they're being criticized for, but honestly, they're doing too much. They don't even have to go this far. And I'm glad to see that they began to realize it. Like, even acknowledging things and being genuine and trying to take accountability, it doesn't work. So eventually they make this tweet saying, "Non-con, gore, violence, incest. If you don't like these expressions, please block me now. I'm just making unhealthy things as fiction, as a work. For reality, I hate all of these things. I see reality and fiction as separate things. Please be assured that I will stop developing works for overseas. Thank you for viewing my work." And honestly, this is a 10 out of 10 response. You set your boundaries, you make it clear that fiction and reality are different, and that you're not going to develop works for overseas. And that's to the loss of everyone. Because you quite literally have ran this talented artist away from the Western market because you want to harass them over edgier themes in their artwork. It's completely insane. And this is a totally fair response. Why would someone want to continue focusing on anything for the West when they're getting berated by Western users? Why would they want to keep focusing on that and making it any sort of a priority when they can just stay within their main audience in Japan and not face anywhere near the level of harassment? But yeah, this was another crazy trip. More people being harassed over drawings. Just another day on Twitter. But the fact that this quote will forever remain relevant is both sad and, I guess, impressive in terms of how far everything has fallen on Twitter. People will continue to treat drawings better than humans, and they will get mad because you know the difference between fiction and reality. But that's going to do it for this video. I know it was a lot, so please share all of your thoughts about today's topics in the comments section down below, and I'll see you guys next time.